Hey, what are you doing out here?
I'm just sitting, man, taking a break.
You've been getting complaints. You look suspicious.
Suspicious? For sitting in a park?
Don't play games. Stand up. Let me see some ID.
The sun beats down on the concrete, but the air between Dexter Clark and Officer Adam N. Fairfax is ice cold. Dexter sits at a weathered picnic table, his pensive expression framed by a gray hoodie and a dark puffer vest, a man simply seeking a moment of peace in the shade. But in the eyes of Officer Fairfax, Dexter isn't a citizen. He's a frustration that discourages the mothers and kids who should be here. "It's just a park that's not meant for you," Fairfax declares, his hand hovering near his belt. "A guy like you puts out a sonar to everyone else. They ask, 'Am I comfortable?' And the answer is no." Dexter doesn't flinch. "Am I bothering anybody? I'm just enjoying the breeze." "You're bothering me," Fairfax snaps, stepping closer to bridge the gap of authority. "I need to see some ID. I need to make sure I'm not sending some troublesome person out there to hurt a nice family." Watch until the end to see the moment the hunter becomes the hunted. Subscribe now for more incredible stories of justice and high-stakes reveals. The humidity of the afternoon hangs heavy over the park, thick enough to blur the edges of the horizon, but Dexter Clark's found the one place where the air still moved. He sits at a weathered concrete picnic table, the shade of the pavilion providing a brief sanctuary from the 180-degree radiant heat reflecting off the pavement. Dressed in a gray hoodie and a dark puffer vest, Dexter leans back, his expression pensive, and his eyes fixed on the empty playground equipment in the distance. He isn't looking for trouble. He's just a man enjoying a snack and the rare silence of a Tuesday afternoon. The silence is shattered by the crunch of gravel and the slow, rhythmic click of a duty belt. Officer Adam N. Fairfax approaches, his shadow stretching long across the concrete before he even speaks. He doesn't offer a greeting or ask if Dexter is distressed by the heat. Instead, he looms over the table, his posture radiating a practiced, aggressive authority. "What's up, my man? What are you doing laid up out here in the park?" Fairfax asks, his voice laced with a condescension that suggests the answer doesn't actually matter. Dexter doesn't flinch. He keeps his hands visible on the table, matching the officer's intensity with a calm, steady gaze. "Chillin', man. It's hot outside. I'm just enjoying my day," he responds, his voice low and level. Fairfax scoffs, his eyes scanning Dexter's attire, the heavy layers that seem out of place to a man in a climate-controlled patrol car. "You can't find a more subdued area to find some shade?" The officer pressures, his tone shifting from inquiry to accusation. He gestures vaguely at the empty park, his face hardening. "It's just a park that's not meant for you. That's the problem." The statement hangs in the air, a blunt admission of the profiling that takes place. Dexter tilts his head slightly, the wide, pouting set of his lips tightening. "What do you mean it's a park that's not meant for me?" he asks, testing the boundaries of the officer's bias. Fairfax doesn't blink. He leans in, bridging the personal space. "I mean, where are you headed? Are you headed home or what?" To Fairfax, a man like Dexter sitting still is an anomaly that needs to be corrected, a troublesome element in a landscape he believes he owns. The interrogation has only just begun, and the shade of the pavilion is starting to feel much smaller than it did moments ago. The tension under the pavilion thickens, a heavy shroud that the afternoon breeze can't pierce. Officer Fairfax shifts his weight, his thumbs hooked into his utility belt in a display of casual dominance that contradicts the sharp interrogative edge in his eyes. He doesn't see a man resting. He sees a variable that doesn't fit his equation for a peaceful neighborhood. Dexter remains anchored to the concrete bench, his expression pensive, refusing to give the officer the frantic reaction he seems to be fishing for. I guess my point is, Fairfax begins, his voice dropping into a patronizing drawl, if you're headed home or you don't have a home, you should either head home or find a better place to park for the night. He gestures vaguely toward the sun-drenched grass, dismissing Dexter's right to the very shade they are standing in. Dexter's pouting, pensive expression doesn't break. He looks at the empty playground and back at the officer. "Am I bothering anybody?" he asks again, the simplicity of the question acting as a shield. Fairfax lets out a sharp, frustrated breath. "Well, you're bothering me, because bothering somebody is a matter of perspective. Legally, maybe you aren't crossing any lines yet." He paces a small semicircle, his boots clicking rhythmically against the cement. "But as I make my rounds, it's frustrating to see you discouraging this park from being used just because you're out here." "What is so frustrating about me being here?" Dexter counters, his voice steady despite the blatant profiling. "The park is empty. I'm not bothering nobody." Fairfax stops pacing and leans down, his face inches from Dexter's. "And I'm wondering if the park is empty because you're out here laid out and having a snack in the middle of the day." He uses the words "a guy like you" as if they were a clinical diagnosis of a threat. To Fairfax, the law isn't a set of rigid rules. It's a subjective tool used to maintain a specific aesthetic of approachability. He views Dexter not as a person, but as sonar that sends out a signal of discomfort to the mothers and kids who aren't even there to witness the encounter. The psychological pressure is mounting, but as Fairfax prepares to demand an ID Dexter isn't ready to give, the officer has no idea he's trying to intimidate a man who is currently the highest-ranking official in the park. The humidity seems to intensify as the conversation shifts from mere frustration to a direct legal demand. Officer Fairfax stands tall, adjusting his vest with a sharp tug that signals the end of his patience. He looks down at Dexter, who remains seated with the same pensive, unmoving gaze, a man who appears to have all the time in the world, despite the officer's growing agitation. "Listen, I just need your ID," Fairfax says, his tone shifting from a suggestion to a command. "Let's get back to the thing. I'll run you, I'll make sure you're straight, and then we'll get you on your way." The officer's eyes search Dexter's face for a flicker of fear or compliance, but he finds only a calm, analytical stillness. Dexter doesn't reach for a pocket. He doesn't even flinch. "I'm not giving you my ID," he responds, his voice a steady contrast to the officer's rising volume. The refusal is like a physical blow to Fairfax's authority. "I need to see your ID so that I can make sure I'm not taking you downtown," Fairfax pushes back, his hand moving closer to his side. "I can just, help you maybe pick a cooler place to sit for the night." To the officer, the lack of identification is a personal affront, a hole in the protection he claims to provide. Dexter finally shifts, leaning forward slightly to meet the officer's glare. "Do you have probable cause?" he asks, the question cutting through Fairfax's rhetoric with surgical precision. Fairfax scoffs, pacing a tight circle on the cement. "Now that we're interacting, we might as well just go through it, right? I now need to make sure I'm not sending some troublesome person out there to hurt some nice family." He mentions his body camera, claiming he needs to protect his own record in case Dexter goes out and hurts somebody. The logic is circular and grounded in nothing but the officer's own assumptions about the man in the hoodie. Dexter watches him, silent and observant, knowing that every word Fairfax speaks is being recorded, not just on the officer's camera, but in a mental file that will eventually bring this entire charade to a crashing end. The midday sun continues its relentless assault on the park, but the air under the pavilion is thick with a different kind of heat, the friction of a power struggle reaching its breaking point. Officer Fairfax stands with his chest puffed out, his frustration manifesting in a series of sharp, jagged movements as he paces the small concrete slab. He looks at Dexter, who remains seated with his hands folded, a picture of high-fashion stoicism that only seems to incense the officer further. What makes you think me sitting right here, minding my own business, means I'll go out there and hurt somebody? Dexter asks, his voice cutting through the officer's restless pacing. It's a logical question, but Fairfax isn't interested in logic. He's interested in compliance. Nothing. That's why we're going to run your ID, Fairfax retorts, his voice rising in an attempt to drown out the lack of legal standing. He leans over the table again, his face a mask of simulated concern. I don't know you. We don't know each other. If I send you out there and you go out and hurt somebody, that's on me. He points toward his chest, then toward the empty walkways of the park, weaving a narrative where Dexter is a ticking bomb and he's the only thing standing between a nice family and a tragedy. Dexter's pensive expression doesn't waver, even as the officer's accusations grow more extreme. "Are you assuming that I'm—" Dexter begins, but Fairfax cuts him off instantly. "I'm not assuming anything. I'm here to protect and serve. I'm serving," Fairfax barks, though the service feels more like a siege. He claims to be protecting Dexter from what he may or may not do, a paradoxical statement that ignores the reality of the Fourth Amendment. To Fairfax, the man in the hoodie and puffer vest isn't a person with rights. He is a potential headline, a troublesome figure that needs to be moved along for the protection of a public that isn't even present. Dexter remains still, watching the officer descend into a loop of biased justifications, knowing that the trap Fairfax is digging for himself is getting deeper with every word. The heat under the pavilion has transitioned from a physical weight to a psychological vice, and Officer Fairfax is the one tightening the handle. He has exhausted his circular logic and his warnings about sonar and uncomfortable families. Now, the performance of protecting and serving shifts into the raw mechanics of an arrest. Dexter remains seated, his hands resting on the concrete, his expression a mask of pensive observation as he watches the officer's hand move from his belt to his handcuffs. "Listen, I would rather have you let me see your ID, find out you're safe, and move you along," Fairfax says, his voice losing its faux politeness and taking on a jagged, threatening edge. He doesn't wait for a response this time. He steps into Dexter's personal space, the metallic jingle of the cuffs echoing against the stone pillars. "Go ahead and stand up. Stand up. Put your bag towards me." Dexter doesn't scramble. He rises slowly, maintaining the main character gravity of a man who knows exactly how this script ends. He doesn't resist, but he doesn't concede his dignity either. "What is your issue?" he asks quietly, even as Fairfax reaches for his arm. "I'm not going to let you murder someone tonight and be troublesome," Fairfax declares, his words a wild leap into a fantasy of criminality that exists only in his own mind. He grabs Dexter's wrist, twisting it behind his back with a sharp, unnecessary force. "Give me that hand, my man. Don't fight it. We're going to slowly do this." As the first steel ring clicks shut around Dexter's wrist, Fairfax leans in, his breath hot against Dexter's ear. "I'm trying to protect you from myself, my man. I don't know your mental stability." He thinks he has neutralized a threat. He has no idea he has just handcuffed a federal agent who is recording every second of this constitutional violation. The steel of the handcuffs bites into Dexter's wrists, a cold and tangible violation of the rights he spent his entire career sworn to uphold. Officer Fairfax cinches them tight, his breathing heavy with the adrenaline of a man who believes he has finally cleaned up his park. He ignores the lack of resistance, treating Dexter's calm as a symptom of something dangerous rather than a sign of innocence. "Stop. Play it cool. Stop, my man," Fairfax mutters, though Dexter hasn't moved a muscle. The officer turns him toward the patrol car, his grip firm on Dexter's bicep as he prepares to finalize the processing of a troublesome phantom. "Officer Johnson, or Fairfax, whatever you're calling yourself today, what's your badge number?" Dexter asks, his voice remaining eerily level despite the position of his arms. Fairfax sneers, feeling the full weight of the power imbalance. 3795. Just stay cool, he barks, shoving Dexter slightly toward the curb. But the aggressive momentum of the arrest is suddenly broken by the sound of a second car door slamming and the rapid approach of two men in suits, their eyes locked on the scene with a chilling intensity. Fairfax's hand goes instinctively to his holster as he sees them. "Back up, my man. I don't know you," he yells, his voice cracking under the sudden shift in the environment. Dexter doesn't look at the newcomers. He looks directly into the lens of Fairfax's body camera. The two men don't stop. They don't reach for weapons. They reach for their pockets, pulling out leather wallets that flip open to reveal gold shields that catch the midday sun. "One of ours. He's one of us," one of the men says, his voice cutting through Fairfax's bravado like a blade. The officer's grip on Dexter's arm slackens, his fingers trembling as the realization begins to sink in. He looks from the badges to the homeless man in the hoodie, the pensive expression on Dexter's face now replaced by a look of profound professional disappointment. The showdown has reached its peak, and Fairfax is about to learn that the most dangerous person in the park was the one he thought was the easiest to bully. The silence that follows is deafening, broken only by the distant sound of a lawnmower that feels worlds away from the wreckage of Officer Fairfax's career. The officer's grip on Dexter's arm doesn't just loosen, it drops, as if the skin beneath the gray hoodie has turned to molten lead. Fairfax stumbles back, his eyes darting between the two gold shields and the man he just called troublesome. "One of ours. He's one of us," the taller agent repeats, his voice like a gavel striking a bench. "You are an absolute idiot. Before you just come and make assumptions, you should learn to do your job correctly." Fairfax fumbles with the keys to the handcuffs, his fingers shaking so violently that the metallic clicking sounds like chattering teeth. "That's my bad," he stammers, the phrase sounding pathetic against the backdrop of the constitutional lines he just crossed. Okay, that's my bad. I was just trying to serve, man." Dexter Clark rubs his wrists as the steel is removed, his pensive expression finally hardening into a look of cold, professional resolve. He doesn't accept the apology. He doesn't even look at Fairfax's face. He looks at the body camera, the silent witness to the officer's bias. "It's people like you that got the system really messed up," Dexter says, his voice a low rumble of truth that carries more weight than any siren. As the federal agents escort Dexter toward a black SUV, Fairfax is left standing alone under the pavilion. The shade he tried to gatekeep is now his only refuge as he watches his professional future drive away. He picked the wrong man to harass, and as the dust settles, the main character of the park isn't the man in the uniform, it's the man who knew the law well enough to let the officer break against it. While this story is based on detailed accounts and documented events, specific details or dialogue may vary across different reports. This video is for educational and documentary purposes only. Like and subscribe for more content of Law & Order Unfiltered.